I used to think companion planting was decoration with extra steps, marigolds because they looked cheerful next to the tomatoes, basil because I read somewhere that it helped, a few nasturtiums because they tumbled nicely over the edge of the raised bed and I liked the color. I was gardening with good intentions and no real understanding, and every summer, same aphids, same hornworm damage, same frustration, told me that hope was not a strategy. Then I spent an afternoon in my neighbor Eli's garden. Same county, same insects in the air, same summer heat, and his plants, every one of them, looked like something out of a seed catalog. Full leaves, no damage, not a curl, not a hole, not a cluster of aphids anywhere I could find. I asked him what he sprayed. He looked at me like I had asked him something backward. I don't spray. Nothing? Not once. Not in 30 years. I want to be honest with you. I have watched enough garden videos to know that statement sounds exactly like the kind of thing someone says before they try to sell you something. Standing right there in his garden, looking at his plants with my own two eyes, I still felt a flicker of doubt. But Eli was not doing less than me. He was doing something I had never thought to do. He was not trying to stop pests after they arrived. He was building a garden that told pests, before they ever landed, that this was not a place worth staying. That is companion planting the way the Amish have done it for 300 years. Not decoration, not folklore. A design system. Every plant placed with a specific job, every relationship chosen on purpose. By the time this video is done, you are going to understand exactly how that system works. And you are going to see why everything most of us were taught about companion planting, the vague advice, the incomplete lists, the marigolds everywhere approach, has been missing the most important part. Section 2, Why Most Companion Planting Doesn't Work. Here is the honest version of companion planting that nobody tells you when you start. Most of the advice in circulation is incomplete. Not wrong exactly, but stripped of the context that makes it work. You get the what without the why. And without the why, you cannot make intelligent decisions. You just follow a list and hope. I had been following lists for years. Marigolds next to tomatoes, check. Basil nearby, check. Nasturtiums somewhere in the bed, check. And I was still losing ground every summer. The first time I walked Eli's garden slowly, not glancing, but actually looking, I noticed something I had not expected. It was denser, more layered, things tucked together in combinations I did not recognize. I said, "Eli, is there a plan to how you have this laid out?" He stopped walking. Every plant in this garden has a job. If it does not have a job, it does not have a place. He was not hoping the marigolds helped. He knew exactly what the marigolds were doing, which pests they affected, which plants they needed to be next to, and at what point in the season they needed to go in to work at all. He could tell me the job of every single plant in those beds. The Amish approach to companion planting is not a list. It is a logic. Understand the logic and you can design your own combinations. Follow a list without the logic and you are back to hoping. Here is the logic in its simplest form. Pests find their host plants using scent. They navigate by chemical signals released by the plants they eat. Companion planting works by disrupting those signals, masking them, overwhelming them with competing chemistry, or by creating physical and biological conditions that make the pest's life harder at every stage. The Amish stack those conditions. They do not rely on one plant to do one job. They create overlapping layers of interference so that when one layer is imperfect, because nothing is perfect, another one holds. That stacking is the whole architecture. Let me show you how it is built. Section 3, the backbone. Three sisters and why it works. Before we talk about which specific plants repel which specific pests, I need to show you the foundation that makes everything else in Eli's garden possible. He calls it the backbone. You may know it by its older name, the three sisters. Corn, beans, squash, planted together, same bed, same time. The corn grows tall and gives the beans something to climb. The beans pull nitrogen from the air and fix it into the soil through their root systems. Free fertilizer, manufactured in the ground all season. And the squash spreads across the ground in every direction, building a dense overlapping canopy that covers the bare soil almost completely. That last part is pest control, not metaphorically, literally. Ground-level pests, cutworms, slugs, certain beetles navigate through open soil. They need exposed ground to move, to lay eggs, to reach the base of your plants. A solid squash canopy removes that. Nowhere to travel, nowhere to reach. Eli told me he has never had a serious slug problem in any bed where Three Sisters went in. I asked if that was a coincidence. He said, "Look at the ground under those squash leaves in August. Tell me where a slug would go." I did look, and I understood. The Amish borrowed this planting system from Native American agricultural tradition, centuries older than European farming on this continent. It reduces pest pressure, fertilizer need, and water need simultaneously while maximizing yield per square foot. That is the Amish standard for a planting decision. It has to solve more than one problem. If a plant only does one thing, it earns a skeptical look. Penn State's agricultural research has since confirmed what these communities knew from observation. Dense ground cover from companion plantings reduces soil surface pest populations significantly, in some trials by more than half, without any chemical application. The Amish have been the living proof. The researchers caught up. This is your foundation. Get the Three Sisters right, and you have already changed the conditions for everything that follows. Now let's talk about the specific pairings, what they actually do, and, just as important, where people misapply them and wonder why they got no result. Section 4. The pairings that actually do something. Tomatoes and basil. This is the most widely known companion pairing in home gardening. It is also the most misunderstood. Basil works alongside tomatoes because it disrupts the scent trail that hornworms and armyworms use to locate the plants. Tomatoes release a specific set of volatile compounds when healthy and growing, compounds that act like a chemical address for the pests that target them. Basil, planted close enough to share airspace, floods that address with competing signals. The message gets scrambled. Eli plants basil down the center of every tomato row, not around the outside of the bed, down the middle, close enough that the leaves brush together in any wind. I asked why the middle instead of the perimeter. He said, the scent has to be inside the signal, not outside it. He was describing olfactory interference, competing volatile compounds creating confusion for insects navigating by smell. He did not use those words, but he had arrived at the right answer through 3 decades of watching. They go in together. They come out together. Planting basil after hornworms appear does almost nothing. The timing matters as much as the plant. Tomatoes and marigolds. Marigolds planted alongside tomatoes genuinely slow whitefly populations when they go in at the start of the season. Their roots release a compound, alpha-terphenol, that disrupts nematode egg development in the surrounding soil all season long. Eli told me he has never had a serious nematode problem in his tomato beds, but when I asked if I should plant marigolds everywhere, he shook his head. Marigolds do nothing for my cabbage, nothing for my carrots. He paused, then said something I wrote down when I got home. Marigolds are a tool for one job. Carry the right tool to the right place. Do not carry it everywhere and wonder why it does not always work. I had been planting marigolds everywhere without knowing their actual job. That is the difference between hoping and deciding. The aphid problem is worth a specific mention. Marigolds can attract aphids themselves. Eli has pulled marigold plants because of aphid colonies on them. If you plant marigolds without understanding this, you can accidentally concentrate aphids near your vegetables while thinking you are protected. Know the tool, know the job, know when to put it down. Potatoes and horseradish. One horseradish plant at each end of a potato row, that is it. Comes back every year without replanting. Takes up almost no space. Deters the Colorado potato beetle well enough that Eli has never lost a full potato crop in 30 years. I said, one plant at each end? That is enough? He said, has been for 40 years. I went home that same afternoon and put horseradish at the ends of every potato row I had. 8 years ago now. Have not had a serious beetle problem since. The mechanism is chemical. Horseradish releases volatile sulfur compounds that the Colorado potato beetle finds deeply aversive. You do not need the whole bed to smell like horseradish, just enough chemical presence to signal the wrong conditions. One plant each end is sufficient. Cabbage family and nasturtiums, the cabbage family, broccoli, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, turnips, cauliflower, shares the same major pest, the cabbage white butterfly. Nasturtiums in the corners of brassica beds serve as trap crops. Aphids prefer nasturtiums over almost every vegetable. Instead of spreading across your kale and broccoli, aphid populations concentrate on the nasturtiums, exactly where you can see them, remove them, or let the ladybugs handle them without any intervention. Eli plants nasturtiums at every corner of every brassica bed without exception. He told me he considers them the cheapest, most reliable pest management decision in his entire garden. They seed themselves after the first year. They come back without you doing anything. Carrots and alliums. Carrot flies locate their target by scent. Onions, leeks, and chives release sulfur compounds that mask the carrot's scent signature at close range. Interplanted in alternating rows, the onion chemistry interferes with the carrot fly's navigation. The same relationship works in reverse. Carrots interfere with the onion fly. Both plants benefit. Both pest pressures are reduced. Two problems solved by one decision. Eli does not plant carrots anywhere without alliums close by. He calls it one of the rules he would not violate. Section 5, the insectary, building your standing army. Everything in the last section was about deterrence, but deterrence is only one half of what Eli's companion planting does. The other half is recruitment. Most home gardeners think about pest control as something you do to pests. Eli thinks about it as something you build into the garden. He is not trying to kill aphids. He is housing the things that kill aphids. He plants sweet alyssum throughout his beds, not for beauty, though it is beautiful, for the hoverflies. Syrphid flies and hoverflies are among the most effective aphid predators in any garden ecosystem, and they are almost completely dependent on nectar sources to complete their life cycle. Their larvae eat aphids. The adults need flowers to breed. Plant alyssum, feed the adults, breed the larvae, and you have a self-replenishing aphid predator population working in your garden all season without any additional effort. One larva consumes several hundred aphids during its development. Eli is not applying anything. He is maintaining a standing army that patrols continuously while he is doing other things. He plants cosmos for the same purpose, including parasitic wasps that lay eggs in caterpillar larvae, ending the caterpillar's life before it damages anything. Those wasps need nectar. The cosmos provide it. I remember the first year I planted alyssum throughout my beds and started paying attention to what was happening at the flower level. The insect activity was unlike anything I had noticed before, not because the insects were new. They were there all along. I just had not been providing what they needed to stay. Once I gave them a reason to be there, they were there constantly. The aphid colonies that formed that summer got handled before I needed to do anything. I watched it happen, a cluster of aphids on a pepper plant. 4 days later, gone. I had not touched it. That was the moment Eli's philosophy stopped being something I understood intellectually and became something I had actually seen. He also let some onions bolt intentionally in late summer. Most gardeners pull bolted onions immediately. Eli leaves some standing. The onion flower attracts beneficial insects whose larvae prey on common pests the following season. He is thinking one full growing season ahead in a single decision about whether to pull a bolted onion. I asked him once, "Eli, those onions have bolted. You gonna pull them?" He looked at them and said, "Not yet. They are still working." I did not understand until the following May, when I crouched near that bed and looked at the soil close. Ground beetles, dark, fast, moving in every direction. More than I had ever seen in one place. He had been feeding them all fall without me realizing it. I stood up and thought about every bolted plant I had yanked out over the years, never knowing what I was pulling with it. Section 6, the scent wall. How Eli designs pest confusion at the bed level. Here is the piece that took me longest to understand, and that I had never seen described in any gardening book or video before Eli explained it to me directly. Most gardeners think about companion plants as individuals. This plant next to that plant. The Amish think about the entire bed as a single scent environment. When you walk the perimeter of Eli's garden in July, you notice the smell before you notice the plants. Strong, layered, garlic at the edge of the allium bed, basil from the tomato rows, the sharp green smell of marigold leaves in the afternoon heat, horseradish underneath all of it. He has designed that. Pests navigate by scent chemistry. The more chemically complex the environment, the harder it is to lock onto a specific target. A monoculture, one type of plant, row after row, is a clear signal, an address that is easy to find. A companion planted bed is a scrambled signal. Multiple competing compounds in the air at once, all interfering with the simple chemical message the pest was following. Eli builds the scent wall in layers. Strong-smelling alliums around the perimeter where insects first approach. Basil inside the bed, close to the plants that most need protection. Marigolds at intervals throughout, releasing root compounds downward and foliage compounds upward. The whole system works as a single unit. He told me once, a pest that cannot find what it is looking for goes somewhere else. It does not fight its way through confusion, it just leaves. When you build this correctly, every plant in the right place at the right time, the garden starts to manage itself. Not perfectly, but with a resilience no spray bottle can replicate, because a spray bottle cannot grow back next year by itself. Section 7, the recipe. Now, the spray. I want to place this correctly, because most people hear about this recipe and think it is the solution. It is not the solution. It is a targeted tool that fits inside a system. Without the companion planting, the spray does less. With the system in place, you rarely need it. And when you do, it fits perfectly. Eli has been making this same spray since he was a teenager. His father made it before him. 2 ingredients, nothing to order, nothing with a warning label, 6 to 8 garlic cloves, crush them, not minced fine, just broken open so the juice releases, 4 to 5 hot peppers, the hotter, the better, cayenne, Thai bird chilies, whatever you have. Jalapenos work, use more of them. Into a quart jar, cover completely with water, lid on, leave overnight, minimum 8 hours. Morning, strain through cheesecloth into a spray bottle. Leftover concentrate keeps in the refrigerator 2 weeks. Spray affected plants in the morning before the day heats up. Aim for the underside of leaves. That is where aphids and spider mites actually live. The capsaicin from the peppers and the sulfur compounds from the garlic make the plant surface deeply unpleasant for soft-bodied insects. They leave. They do not build resistance to it the way they build resistance to synthetic chemicals. And because you apply it in the morning before beneficial insects are active, the ladybugs and hoverfly larvae doing the real long-term work stay completely untouched. No warning label, no protective gloves, no reason to keep the kids or the dog out afterward. Use it when the companion planting needs backup, not as a substitute for it. Section 8. What companion planting cannot do alone. I want to be honest about something because Eli was honest with me about it. Companion planting is not the whole system. It is the most visible layer, the one you see every time you walk into the garden. But it sits on top of 2 foundations that have to be right before it does its best work. The soil has to be healthy, not just fertilized, biologically active. Stressed plants in poor soil produce weaker chemical signals. They release less of the volatile compounds that basil and marigolds are helping to mask. A struggling plant is easier for pests to find and harder for companion planting to protect. Eli works crushed eggshells and compost into his beds every fall. He applies food-grade diatomaceous earth around vulnerable plant bases in early spring. He runs chickens through his garden beds before planting season, letting them scratch out grubs and pest larvae in the top layer of soil, resetting the pest cycle before it starts. The companion planting works as well as it does, partly because of what happens underneath it first. And the rotation has to cross family lines. This is the mistake I made for years. Broccoli, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, turnips, they look different, taste different, but they are the same botanical family, and they share the same pests. Move from broccoli to cabbage, and you have not broken a single pest cycle. You have just moved the same buffet to a different table. Eli rotates across 4 completely unrelated plant families over 4 years. He showed me a worn notebook in his barn, the cover soft from years of handling, pages brown at the edges, 4 columns, 1 for each bed, 4 years written out in pencil. I always know what goes in every bed for the next 4 years. I do not decide in spring. I decided years ago. The companion planting works better when the soil is right. The soil stays right when the rotation is real. Everything in Eli's system connects. Section 9, the full planting guide. Here is the companion planting guide I actually use, built from everything Eli showed me and confirmed by 8 years in my own garden. Tomatoes, basil down every row, marigolds interspersed throughout, no peppers or eggplant directly adjacent. Same family, concentrates rather than disrupts the pest signal. Potatoes, one horseradish plant at each end of every row. No exceptions. Brassicas, nasturtiums at every corner as trap crops, dill at the bed edge to attract parasitic wasps, keep away from strawberries, they stunt each other. Carrots, alternating rows with onions, leeks, or chives. Do not plant alone. Squash and cucumbers, nasturtiums at corners, marigolds at the perimeter. Plant with corn if you have the space to let the three sisters work. Beans. Do not plant next to any allium family plant. Onions, garlic, chives, leeks. The chemistry suppresses bean growth. One of the companion planting rules that actually matters and one of the most commonly violated. Throughout every bed, sweet alyssum and cosmos for beneficial insect habitat. Non-negotiable in Eli's garden, now non-negotiable in mine. Every plant on that list has a specific job. Know the job. Plant with purpose. Section 10, Year 1, Honesty. One thing before I let you go, because Eli was straight with me about it. Year 1 is the hardest year. Your soil biology needs a full season to rebuild. Your beneficial insect populations need time to establish. You may still have problems that first year. You may still reach for a spray more than you would like. That is all right. The system is not fully built yet. Give it 1 full year. By year 2, you will notice fewer aphid colonies, more beneficial insect activity, pest pressure that seems to pause before it gets established. By year 3, you will not recognize your garden. By year 4, you will understand why Eli looks at a spray bottle the way he does. Not like something useful, like something that solves one problem by quietly dismantling 3 others. Section 11, Close. I still think about that afternoon in Eli's garden, standing there, looking at plants with 0 pest damage while I had been scattering marigolds around for years without knowing what they were actually doing. The gap between us was not skill or land or luck. It was the difference between placing plants and designing a system, between hoping and deciding. Eli told me once that a pest is just a creature in the wrong garden. His job was not to kill pests. His job was to build the right garden. Build the right garden. Soil, rotation, companion plants in the right relationships. And the pests do not find what they came looking for. Some will still arrive, but they will not find conditions that let them take hold. And the garden, over time, builds the means to handle them itself. He was not smarter than me. He was not working harder. He was working from a completely different starting point. He was not trying to stop pests. He was building a garden that did not need him to. If any of this gave you something, a pairing you had never heard explained properly, a mistake you recognized, a starting point you did not have before, I would genuinely like to hear about it in the comments. Tell me where you are starting from. Tell me what your garden looks like right now. The next video goes deeper into the rotation system, the specific plant families, the 4-year plan, and the notebook method Eli uses to plan half a decade of beds without it ever becoming complicated. Worth staying for. If you are not subscribed yet, now would be the right time. Eli taught me that a garden rewards the people who stop trying to win against it and start learning to work with it. However long that takes, 1 season or 5, is exactly the right amount of time. I will see you in the next one.